And welcome back to Books and Blogs. So Douglas, add your point.
Okay. Our psychologist has just mentioned a point which is very interesting. The idea that sometimes when people get hurt, they tend to project that hurt in a subsequent relationship, whatever it is. Generally, the way we end up becoming is a function of two things. Basically, our nature and our nurturing. The nature bit is whether you're a boy or a girl or whether the culture or whatever. Sometimes it just happens because you're in a certain way or you have a certain orientation, without explaining too much, some things happen in a certain way or you end up doing things in a certain way. Yeah? But also there's a nurturing bit, which is what we're actually covering here. And everything actually eventually becomes a result of that. You might be a boy, but you might have been raised with 6 girls, you end up having more the qualities of those girls than the boy, even if you're a boy. That's something that has more the nurturing than the nature.
The nature, I see. Okay, so let's touch just little bits of the book. So the way they hurt the mind. So Josephine, start us on the way of the boy.
Okay, so for me, what I took out from the way of the boy is that parenting needs to change through the different stages of the boy. So as you begin, the boy is very young and he is exploratory. He's trying to find out, as we said. And so the parent, you're basically guiding and directing him so that he can learn from his environment and his growth phase. And then it gets to a point where he has learned enough, but still now is trying to question, and therefore the curiosity elements come in. And the world might not take this boy very well because he's challenging, he's stubborn, he's disruptive. And if the role of the parent there is to affirm and correct and to steer this boy in the right direction. And this is the age between, I think, 5 to around 8 there, where you allow the boy, yes, to explore, but you guide him, you steer him to the correct path, and also affirm him. This is where the communication aspects also start coming in, where as a boy, he wants to be able to know that I can be heard at home, or I'm affirmed in the house. And if that is broken, because we were saying don't cry, don't express fear, then you lose this boy. By the time he's getting into the teenage years, the 13 to 17, where he is basically that phase, I think, was described as a wanderer. Yes, and it's the most confusing stage of that boy. And if the formative years he did not get a nice foundation from where he can still come back and be vulnerable, this confusion and this state tends to have the boy closing up. So as a mother or the father, you might not know what is happening to this guy. You might not even hear him. He doesn't want to listen to you. And therefore, they can close up. And so it's important before he gets to that teenage age that a bond is formed. And you can somehow be able to listen, or you can know that in as much as I'll go and do the wrong things, at home I was taught this is the right way, in the nurturing phase. Yeah. And then again, when he gets to become a man, the 18 to 23 years.
The warrior.
Yes, the warrior. Then also the conversation starts to change, because he's now even realizing, I think there are some things I did which were very awful, because now he's growing up and the reality of the world is getting to him, and the conversations with the parent as well will start also changing. Remember, this is a place where he's forming relationships. So as a parent, are you welcoming? Are you supporting? Are you helping him through that phase? And how is that relation coming in?
Got you.
And maybe to that point, because we were discussing something quite critical, what Douglas was mentioning about nature versus nurture, and we're saying it's very important, especially for the formative years. If you look at the development stage of a boy, between 1 and 3, that's where they really get to grow quite a lot. And Nelly was also sharing that even 1 to 6, especially if you're looking at language development and those kinds of things, it's quite important. And sometimes society does not even recognize, like we were discussing the story of, maybe you can just talk about that.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. When you go from 0 to 6, definitely, first of all, even in the book, it's very clear that the person starts when they're just before birth.
Yeah, actually, that's where I am now.
Yeah, before birth, they get to recognize even the voices, you know. So if you're not good to your wife, definitely the kid can feel it. And when they grow up to 6 years old, and we have this in our community where we have a lot of kids who are not having the father figures, then we come to a place like where I am, in a kindergarten, not specific here, but I'm saying like the profession, you find you have very few male kindergarten teachers. So where does that leave us? If you look at Sunday school, yes, you'll find a Sunday school teacher, Biblia, it's okay. You know, you want to be a pediatrician, a nurse, but a kindergarten teacher, when you start thinking of daycare, kindergarten, blah, 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 boo, 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 because it has to start from there. We have to change. But we want to raise whole men.
Yeah.
So why should we have only women being the ones to
At
care
the
for
formative
the
stages,
formative
yeah.
stage?
Yeah.
So you find that if we have, for example, I have worked, when I was working abroad, we had teachers, and one of my greatest mentor, the one who really helped me, was a male. And I remember he only had 2 kids, but now he has about 5. And he was really, really eager to teach these kids. These kids were taught even about their country, about communism. That's in the kindergarten stage. 4 years. Do you know why your daddy can speak this language? It is because these guys invaded our land, and now our... So they get history at that age.
Which country is this you are working?
At that age, you know? So
Sounds like North Korea.
They
Just saying.
it's in Budapest. It was in Budapest,
Okay.
and they get to learn and appreciate their language.
Farahab, so that's the way, and I need us to go to the heart. The heart, the heart of a boy. Yeah, before I let the boys talk about their hearts, let me have a female perspective.
All right, so when I was reading this book, one of the things that struck me is the fact that it's actually a heart.
Oh my God. Who are you? My goodness. They have hearts.
Very, very honest. And not the heart in the sense of, when I look at it in terms of feelings, in terms of response, in terms of reaction, that's why it struck me that it's not an organ that pumps blood through their bodies. This is for them, this is a big deal, and I think maybe it's because I come from a home where I was raised by a woman who was very strong, and for me the aspect of a man was very foreign. It wasn't something that was close to me every day.
Okay.
So as I was reading this book, I started to see what the writer was saying about children starting at a very tender age. I think it's maybe the age of 4. Is it 4? 4 years. They become what he calls the lovers, right?
Yeah.
Children who are responding to feelings and they're responding to being held and to certain figures in their lives. And I was like, it starts when they're that young, you know. And the writer actually says it is very possible for a boy to develop some kind of social lack, if I put it that way, because at some point in their developmental stage, nobody understood what their heart needed, so nobody responded to those needs. So this boy grows up having not related with their heart, and as adults now we expect them to function as adults. And you know, I will put myself as a woman. If I am dating somebody, you know, if I am upset,
and do they have a heart? Anyway, do you see the heart? Do you see the heart? Has this book helped you? But anyway, I digress. I digress. Sorry.
let us blush.
Okay.
When I was looking at that as a woman now, you know, when I'm thinking about myself in relationships, and most of the times I'm always asking, why don't you feel anything? You know, it's very easy for me to just point that, why don't you feel anything? Now when I read the book, I realized, okay, it could be he doesn't feel the way I want him to feel or respond the way I want him to feel, because I was taught different. You know, when I'm growing up as a young girl, I'm allowed to stay in the house, play with dolls, have feelings, but boys that will go outside and play. Who knows what they're learning when they're out there? They just come back in and eat, then go back outside and play.
Yeah.
Maybe because we're seeing them as very destructive. So we're not taking time to relate to their hearts. And the writer was very keen that.
So this book has helped your relationship.
It has. Oh my goodness. Yes. It has helped me be very patient now.
Okay.
I get an amen.
But it's what Andrew said. They don't want to be told. But they say, why are you not feeling anything? Oh, the boy's just like, ooh, what is she saying? But Washington will help you on what you need to be asking. But yeah, you just finish your point. I am sorry, I keep bullying you into this.
It's quite okay. When I looked at the book and the way the writer designed the book, he helps me now look at the different stages of this young man's life. So when he's starting out, when he's born, when he's now a toddler, when he goes to the teenage years. So all of these different ages, this child has different needs. So there's a physical need, there's an emotional need, there's a mental need.
Yeah.
So I liked that he points out at each stage, the boy has needs.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
So you won't get an adult, a fully functional adult,
Yeah.
if you don't address what these needs are. And he lists what are some of the things that you can do. Do you need to give him space?
Yeah.
Do you need to set boundaries
Yeah.
for him? But still, tell him you have freedom to explore, but this is as far as you can go.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you can't explore,
Yeah.
but this is as far as you can go. Yeah.
Washington, why do you think this book is necessary for especially people raising boys?
Tell us your story.
It's got a story.
Now that I have a boy and the contrast between him and me, how I was brought up,
Yeah.
I allow him to cry. But for me, I think I cried when I went to school the first time because I didn't like it. Then I cried after teenagehood. So there were.
So you were not allowed to cry?
I wasn't allowed to cry.
Ah.
In school, the girls are allowed to cry. You are punished the same. 3 strokes each, they're allowed to cry, you are not allowed to cry. We went to high school and we were told the very first day here we breed men.
Wow.
You don't cry. And so I learned to keep it together.
What Pastor was saying, you hide
Yeah,
it
just
inside.
hide it.
Yeah.
So there were several years in between, maybe I was between 7 and 18 there, like 10 years, where for me crying was for weaklings.
Wow.
So now after clearing college, you know, there's a point where now life becomes real. Then you hear maybe a pastor say, it's okay. I think I was listening, I was reading Emotions or...
Okay, by Jakes,
They were saying, it's okay for men to feel. That's when I realized, oh, so there are those lost 10 years.
Where you didn't feel. So did you have one night where all the 10 years came
All the
together?
Yeah, it just came together once.
Is
I
it?
thought,
Wow.
what's happening? Because in between actually there, because of not wanting to feel, I know I grew up in a spiritual family.
Yeah.
But in between, when I became a wanderer, I actually started doubting my own spirituality. Actually, that's the first time I questioned, does God really exist?
Exist.
Yeah, because now I'm learning to put everything together, and you don't need someone else to strengthen you.
Yeah.
But now, when it became now real, after campus, you know, now, life becomes, that's the first time I just broke down.
Wow.
And I thought it was a new life because I wasn't used to this thing. So I think now
So how did that feel?
At some point it felt refreshing. Yeah, because now you have these 10 years of burdens that you just kept in. But now it was refreshing.
Yeah.
And it's like I started a new life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such
But there was a time I could not, even if I was dying, I could not ask for help.
Yeah?
Yeah, you're in town, you don't have fare, you meet with someone, but you don't want to ask because it appears weak. So what do? You walk back 10 kilometers from where you came from, just because you don't want to be bothered.
Wow.
Yeah, and that one, it took me a while for me to figure that one out. And now the book now brings it clearly that it's okay, and that's how we are wired.
Right.
Yeah.
So this wiring, Douglas, so that's the way the heart, the mind. So by the time he's not willing to borrow 30 bob for bus fare, you'd rather walk 10 kilometers. What is he thinking
Wow.
as a boy?
You know, you feel by you trying to reach out to ask for help, you are not becoming a man.
Yeah.
You're not manly by doing that. So you actually have recourse to doing those crazy things out of that pride. As I was reading the book, at one point I was a bit bored. I don't know, because I'll tell you why. You know, have you ever read a book about Kenya that is written by a foreigner, where you know everything? I mean, you're Kenyan, so someone talks about Kenya in a very, like, you're Kenya, this guy is and you're there, you're one of them. You're like, so next.
Yeah.
I'm a man, I'm a boy, and they're talking about boys, and I'm like, okay, fine. So
This is talking about me.
next, no.
So it was true to you reading that book. That's why you were bored, because you're like.
Yeah, it's like, so what are you telling me? I mean, I'm a boy.
Really?
Yeah,
Did
so-
the other boys go through the same?
No, for me, those are never.
No. But for girls, me, I was like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, you think,
It's so
okay,
interesting.
fine. So, next. So,
What's the point here?
Are you serious?
It's like I'm not surprised. Like even when everyone is sharing their stories, I'm like, you guys still don't see the writing on the wall. It is plain English. like that part where she's mentioning about the warrior part.
Yeah.
The warrior is the energy now. We are fighting for a cause, and notice where the age it comes, like 18 to 24.
Yeah.
Notice what a warrior does, his function is to fight for a cause or for the country or for someone, a king normally. That's the time when we get into employment, so the employer is our king. If we don't have employment, how are you telling a warrior to be an entrepreneur? Those are two different energies, so you can see why you have a lot of men wandering around aimlessly. So you can see how narratives of whether it's boy child, girl child, is being done without knowing the biology of what is needed. So at the end of the day, we want to fight for a cause, but we don't know. That's why you see, when you're trying to fight against corruption,
You want to go to war, but
it is easy to jump on that bandwagon, but not to fight to build the king's castle or the environment, because we are citizens ready to work to build. That's what we are there for.
Right.
That's why we do our exploration when we are young. That's why you see every stage, every message we get, we have to be very careful of the language we use.
As
Especially,
boys.
yes, even as boys, even as parents, as
Okay.
moms especially,
Yeah.
even as dads, because, like for example, that exploratory phase.
Yeah.
We know that as adults we prefer this energy to be contained. We want some peace and quiet, please. But if we realize, just observing, go anywhere. Most of the time, the women will be like, stop jumping, don't climb, you'll fall down, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
And then when I saw what's going on, oh my God, this is the teaching of fear, the limits. Boom, boom.
And I think also in the book, he's very keen about the type of mothers that you should be when you're raising a boy. And you know, he talks about the different attachments that mothers have to their sons. So you do not want to be a mother hen, especially when you're raising a boy. You have to realize, are these my personal fears that are keeping me from allowing him to climb a wall? Am I biased towards something? You know, then you also don't want to be an anti-acid. You don't want to be bitter. Because, you know, if I was raising a man and I had been hurt by a man, chances are I'd be very strict on this man that I am raising. You don't treat girls like that. You don't behave like that. You're failing to see at what point in their development are they? And what are their behaviors? So how should I respond to those behaviors? And the other thing he warns about is don't get too attached to this child. You know, you don't want to be, you know, the one who's telling his wife what to cook for him,
Yeah.
or how he should dress.
Yeah.
You want to be the kind of mother who understands where my son is
Yeah.
in this journey.
Yeah.
What are the right ways for me to respond to him in this journey? And when do I start saying, okay,
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Pastor, when you're counseling families, and these are families with boys, and especially that age, the age where your son is, the 11 to 17, do you find in our culture here, do they open up on what the issues are?
Different people do things differently. Different families have different frameworks in terms of, there is so much we borrow from where we are coming from, in terms of where I was born and brought up, where the husband was born and brought up. And now we carry so much to where we are going, and sometimes we kind of try to transfer them to the same. Like from the book, what I was speaking, Lily was saying, I think we need to change our strategy as parenting. We cannot still think the old ways. Like as he was saying, and as everybody was saying to add on the same, the stages of the exploring and up to that warrior stage. I realized that we want the 22 to have an intimate relationship with the people, either that is the time they are making up to somebody to attach to a lifetime partner. It is not working because it never went well at the exploration stage. So the transition from exploration to go to the lover, then going to an individual self, then going to a wanderer, then we want him to become a male, a man, the boy child that we want. We still don't have the boy as a gentleman, because as I was going through the book, I realized that we don't realize about the heart. We feel like there's something we call in psychology called male chauvinism, whereby a male is a macho man, whereby they don't have feeling. It's like the world, the book is quite clear, the world whereby it's like hawananga feeling. And I realize it's true, they have, but sometimes we have crushed them at the early stages. So this one has culminated to you expect somebody to be intimate, and he was not. You never even, there was nothing like that. It cannot happen overnight. You want a teenager to be...
Is she talking to you?
You want a teenager to have an identity?
Yeah.
No, you will have those confusions. Because was it built there before, like the way she's saying? I like that in the kindergarten, the junior part of it, and that one we are building upon it on the LYP. Whereby, are we building them when they are there? Or we have already killed their emotions by telling them, please don't cry. Okay, what do you expect me to do? Like, that is what you find that in families, we are doing it in a very long way. Not because we know, but because we don't know. And that is the way you find that what I pick from the book is the nurture part of it. Okay, the nature is fine because we have the boy. But at the end of the day, we need a gentleman.
We need to wind up. So Josephine, why should we pick this book? Why should this book be in every household?
I would say this book is important because, in all honesty, we interact with boys, whether our own or our neighbors or our cousins, or nephews, nieces, cousins. So we all have a role to play. And again, it takes a community, a village, to nurture a child. So as a person, it's important to understand, just for you, as Farahab said, you want to understand what are the differences between boys and girls, and how can I influence relationships positively at any stage, because we interact with either gender. So it's not only for parents of boys. I would say everybody really needs to get a grab of this copy, because it will teach you things about your spouse that you never knew, and therefore you could start changing how you relate with the people closer to you, or even those who you think you can influence positively.
Well, thank you very much. I'm afraid we cannot extend longer. Like I said, I was saying this book is really fat. There's lots in there. You need to get this copy for yourself. But for now, thank you so much, members of LYP, Readers and Leaders Book Club. Refer to an earlier episode on how you can be a member of LYP. For now, have a blessed week.